Hi, everyone. My name is Joey Wong. I'm from Life Science Nation. Thank you all for joining our Investor Fireside Chat webinar today. For today's session, I'll be moderating the conversation with my colleague Momo. Momo, if you would like to quickly introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Momo. I'm on the research team at Life Science Nation as well.
Thank you. So for today's session, we are happy to have invited three panelists representing both venture capital and also pharma, all of whom are actively allocating and supporting the early stage life science and healthcare innovations. And they'll be sharing a little bit more about their perspective on some trends and perspective on the current investment landscape, what they've been seeing in the market so far in 2025, and also share a little bit more about their expectation as we head into for the end of 2025 and also as we head into 2026. So I would like to just give a quick thank you again for the three panelists who are joining us today. And before we get started, I would like to just quickly introduce our firm as well for those of you who are not familiar with us. Our firm is called Life Science Nation. We are a Boston-based company that focuses on connecting early stage life science and healthcare startup with the right investors and strategic partners in that space. One of the ways we do this is through our Resi conferences. This is a conference series that goes on 5 times a year and is dedicated to life science and healthcare deal making and investment. Our upcoming event would be in Boston, Resi September, which will take place at the Westin Copley Place in Boston on September 17th. I think most of the panelists here will be joining us at the conference either in person or virtually. So this would be a great opportunity if you are a fundraising CEO for you to meet some new investors or reconnect with someone that you've met before. And if you are an investor, this would be a great opportunity to look for investment opportunity in this space. So we will drop some information about that in the chat for those of you who haven't heard about it yet. And lastly, before we start, a quick house cleaning rule. If you have any questions for our panelists at any point of the discussions, please feel free to drop them in Q&A or in chat. We will allocate maybe a 5 to 15 minutes at the very end to address those questions. So feel free to, ask any questions that you like, and we will try to answer them as much as we can. With that, I think we can get started. To kick things off, I would like to invite each of our panelists to introduce themselves. So it would be great if you could just share a little bit more about yourself personally, your background or your investment interest, where it is at, and also talk a little bit more about the firm that you're representing. I know we have a very diverse pool of panelists here today, both from the venture side and also from the pharma side. So it'd be great if you could give us a little bit of an overview of the firm you're representing and what you're looking for in this space as well. I don't know if anyone of you would like to get a kickstart, but feel free to chime in here.
I can go first. I'm Danny. Great to meet everybody. Thanks for joining, and to our very gracious host for having us. Thank you as well. Looking forward to this conversation. I am a traditionally trained computational neuroscientist turned life science investor, PhD in bioengineering from BU here in Boston. Have been with the folks at SciMed Ventures for about a quarter now, so it's pretty rather early. And at SciMed, we like to pitch ourselves as investing in frontier neuroscience with a human first lens. And what that means is that we're looking for companies that are working on neuro or brain health. That means that we're going to be able to do anything from biotechs to neurotechs to wearables to even AI or mental health care delivery platforms. When I say human first lens, that means that we want things that are focusing around human problems, or be it orthogonal approaches or maybe even moonshots for neuro, because as we all know, mice have the best healthcare in the world. So it's time to figure out how we can translate that more to human brain health. Our ticket sizes are going to be anywhere from 500 to $750,000. We are working towards our second close in Fund 2, which is exciting for us. And as Joey mentioned, we are deploying capital, so being able to deploy in this market is very pleasing to us. Because of our ticket sizes, that's generally going to push us towards a pretty early stage. So that's going to be pre-seed, seed. And as a result, we're also probably going to be following most deals as opposed to leading. But if the numbers work themselves out, we're also happy to be stage agnostic and lead deals as well.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. This is Elizabeth Jofer-Teague. I'm one of the managing partners here at Meta Ventures. Thank you, Joey, Life Science Nation, for the invitation. Always great to come back. We have our roots as a physician and scientist founded group. My doctorate was in cancer therapeutics, and after some time at biotech and startups, I turned into an investor. And alongside my physician and scientific colleagues, as well as people from industry, payer side too. We had a fund one, and that's fully deployed, and now we are on to a fund two. But we have an angel group also still active. That's where we got our start. So that part is still allocating. We tend to invest at mid-seed and Series A for the venture side. It will be also that, but we will be happy to lead as well. And we focus on therapeutics, digital health, and medical devices. And we are somewhat agnostic as far as indication. And that's us in a nutshell.
Nikhil Mutyal, I'm head of search and evaluation for AstraZeneca for respiratory and immunology. So that means me and my team, we are responsible for external collaborations, be it licensing deals or acquisitions for companies of all stages, types, global. So basically, the deals that you see in the news about AstraZeneca, that's generally through our team. So very broad remit there. Nothing is off the table for us. Obviously, AstraZeneca hopefully needs no introduction, but we are, top five pharma. Our focus is primarily on therapeutics. So our partnering interests are primarily on that side. Obviously, there is interest in technology because technology enables drug development and manufacturing and a lot of other things, clinical trial recruitment and all of that. So we do have a separate enabling technologies group, which does partnerships with technology teams and technology companies. My team is primarily focused on the therapeutic side in respiratory and immunology, where we have a very, very broad remit. Nothing is off the table really for us. By background, I'm a scientist by training, but I've been in BD for last 13 years, primarily in big pharma. Before this, I was with Merck and Company, also known as MSD, the US Merck. There I had a similar role. I have covered almost all therapeutic areas now. I'm really oncology specialist. Before Merck, I was primarily oncology, but at Merck, I got into all therapeutic areas, immunology, respiratory, neuroscience, cardiovascular, renal, vaccines included as well. And at AZ now, I'm focused primarily on respiratory and immunology. We have done quite a lot of deals at AZ. Recently, you may have seen 3 China deals. One recent deal will be announced with a smaller American company, more technology focused as well. We have other deals with Tempus for genetic data and all of that. There are a few more deals on the technology side. And MSD, I was involved with quite a lot of licensing and acquisition deals as well. So great to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Nikhil. It sounded like we all have some very different focus here. So my first question for you guys is, within life science and healthcare, what are the areas that you're currently most focused on or most passionate about, and why? And is there any emerging technology or scientific areas that you found particularly interesting in where you're looking at so far? I don't know if any of you would like to get started with that.
Sure,
I
I
don't
can-
mind. Oh, go ahead,
Go.
Nikhil. Go ahead. Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. So I mean, obviously, my focus is respiratory and immunology, but AstraZeneca, we have in all therapeutic areas, oncology, cardiovascular, renal, metabolic, rare diseases. So everything is on the table for us. I think what we look for generally, I can comment on that first across all therapeutic areas, right? It's really transformational therapies, which will be foundational in any given disease area. So really backbone therapies, which will change the standard of care, right, for patients with high unmet need. That's really what we are after. So we are not looking for incremental things. We are looking for things which are really going to change the disease paradigm and the treatment paradigm, right? So one of the examples we can give is Baxdrostat, which we just released phase 3 data for. This will be first medicine for hypertension, treating, chronic hypertension, which has not been treated so far, and it results in a lot of different comorbidities. So this is the sort of defining therapies that we are talking about. So that's really what we look for is first in class, best in class, novel mechanisms, things that can change, the game. Now going specifically into immunology and respiratory, I think there right now, if you know, the landscape has been dominated by cytokine therapies, anti-inflammatories primarily. People are now looking for more orthogonal approaches, be it other mechanisms which broadly impact inflammatory pathways selectively, right, without causing, immunosuppression, broad immunosuppression. That's really the name of the game. It's pretty broad, but there are few areas in which there's a lot of movement where you can actually target more broad but be also safe at the same time. So that's really the holy grail, I would say, in immunology, and will continue to be. Combinations are going to be critical, not just in immunology but all indications, because be it a tumor or be it inflammatory condition, there's always resistance, and patients will relapse eventually. So the relapse will happen due to different pathways. So if you can combine different pathways and deliver that therapeutic upfront, maybe you will keep patients in remission for a longer period of time, across different therapies. So those are some of the main things I can highlight at high level.
Perfect. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, so unlike Nikhil and Danny, we are indication agnostic. So we will look at just about any opportunity, absolutely, those with high unmet needs. And just an area that you almost can't escape nowadays is immunology, because it just spreads over many different areas, right? It can involve cancer as well as autoimmune, as well as even infectious diseases. I've seen they employed immunology to try to deal with microbes. So that's, and also who can avoid also the GLPs and cardio, metabolic is another area. These are massive markets, still high unmet needs. Our preference, of course, would be first in class, best in class, but sometimes you can make a big difference even with, like Nikhil was saying, combinations. Tagging on to first in classes as well. And another area that we're very interested too is digital health, because you have so many of these monitoring devices now, right? Remote health, wearables, so forth, and they also feed in to pharmaceuticals. How is the patient doing on XYZ drug? Is it working? Is it not working? Or could it be something peripheral, like they're not compliant? Those are all almost, we had companion diagnostics, and digital is almost another companion. And we're seeing more and more partnerships happening. So I think the two areas feed off of each other very well. That's therapeutics and digital. So those are the areas, again, indication agnostic, the big elephants, which you can't avoid for good reason, immunology, metabolic, more interested in longevity, as you know, so metabolic. GLP is almost an anti-aging, if you think about it. And digital, how it intertwines with pharma, to help patients take better ownership of their health. And that's what we're looking at now.
Perfect. Thank you. What about you, Denny?
I can wrap both Elizabeth and Nikhil's answers into one. Obviously, we're going to be more focused towards neuro indications, but we are looking for those orthogonal, properly transformative approaches. One of the things that we've been really interested about, and I think this is just generally the computational neuroscientist nerd in me, at the risk of a groan from the entire audience, data. We're really excited about platforms that are taking a data forward approach, hopefully building in a feedback loop to make their own platforms better. There's with the rise of compute and big data, obviously, this is now practically standard as opposed to a novelty that folks are bringing to the table. But where we think that there's going to be a proper differentiation is going to be some kind of proprietary data set upstream and some proprietary way of handling or iterating with said data set to get a uniquely powerful platform. And then to that end, also adding to what Elizabeth said about metabolism, we're really interested in metabolomics as well, wherein it's looking at what the state of what a neuropathology can be. So the way that I like to explain it to folks is when a computer crashes, you're going to look for the memory dump as opposed to what's wrong with the code, to where in the metabolism or the metabolics of the cell is going to be what's wrong with that state of the cell. So I think that if we take a data approach in that space, we're going to be able to really find relationships that should have been obvious before. So again, long way of saying we're looking for transformative neurotherapies that are data forward, and if they're in metabolomics, we're especially interested.
Awesome. I mean, you guys have touched a little bit on this, especially with like GLPs and the data that you just mentioned, Danny. But are these or are there other major trends that you might have observed in the investment landscape so far in 2025? How do you anticipate the fundraising and investment environment to evolve for the rest of the year and beyond? I mean, this is a very broad question and it's very rocky, but any input would be great on that.
We go in the same order?
Yeah,
Again, it
yeah, yeah,
doesn't matter. It doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Sure.
And
So,
yeah,
I mean, I'll leave the investment question to the venture folks. I mean, it's been tough, obviously, right? The markets, are right now not like 2022, where it was free for all. Anybody could go IPO with a preclinical stage or a platform. Right now, IPOs are very, very narrow. Last 6 months, I don't think there was any, major IPO from what I recall in biotech space, and that likely will continue. But that doesn't mean the funding is short. I talked to VCs and, both crossovers, early stage, late stage. Funding is there for companies who have actual, good stuff. And that good stuff generally right nowadays is a lot of clinical data, or at least having a line of sight going into clinic and generating clinical POC, right? Those companies do get funded. So that's the thing I have been. But this does open a window into partnering, right? Like, I mean, there are non-VC ways, and that's where we come in. We offer partnerships where companies can work together with us, to keep their own, shares, obviously, but get some non-dilutive financing from us, work together to develop, the therapies, right? So that's just another way to go about it, and we see a lot of companies now leveraging that, right? There are novel deal structures that companies are doing, co-development, other areas that have been explored that were not common when funding was quite, in flux, right? So the other thing that, I would like to mention, because we do a lot of work in China these days, and, China deals are very, very common. It's affecting, all the ecosystem, including here, right? Because China speed, cost, efficiency is undeniable, and that's really the way forward. So everybody has to keep that in mind as well on, what is it that, your company is going to be differentiated on, right? Because if you bring a target, it's for sure that there will be five Chinese companies who will have that fast follower in no period of time, right? So the question for you is, how do you, differentiate yourself? Is it first to market, novel mechanism, hard to copy, hard to, sort of work around through IP, things like that. And I think that we have seen very, very common, because one thing I'll say is, if we miss, let's say, a mechanism, GLP-1 is a great example. We were not among the first ones like Lilly and Novo, but then we did a deal in China, because obviously there was a good company in China which was already in the clinic generating data, right? So it's become quite common nowadays, right? Like, if you miss a mechanism, you go look in China, you will find somebody in clinical stage, you can do a deal, right? So I think that is one thing that companies here to have to be aware and factor into their investment decisions, strategic decisions. How are you gonna, really differentiate from that? So I'll mention that in context, because now China is coming back up again. The Hong Kong market, I've seen so many IPOs happening there recently, and that window was closed, but now it is open again. So they are going to be flux with cash. So that's going to make this problem more and more acute.
Let me try to remember the question. Investment outlook as well as any other trends. One trend, it's been around though, but we haven't mentioned yet is AI, right? AI is everywhere. And so anything that can benefit from validated AI would be great. We actually employ an AI predictive platform to somewhat determine which molecules are going to make it through clinic. And still with a somewhat hesitancy on, the accuracy of it. We still put a human lens to it, but we're seeing more AI platforms being used by pharmas and even standalone companies that are developing their drugs. There's even one that's made it all the way to phase 2. So it's here. It's here, definitely. So wherever AI makes sense, we will, but again, it should be very well validated. In terms of investment landscape, no question, it's still hard. It's still hard. And now with non-dilutive funding from the government, kind of cut at the knees, right? Uh, Startups are looking more and more to dilutive. Besides VCs and strategics, there are family offices to consider as well. They're becoming more institutionalized. So you just have to get very creative, maybe even look abroad too. It's tough. It's tough. And it's tough for VCs too to raise. So don't be shy. Go beyond the traditional path and work everything. That's what I'd have to say. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's doable. Just have to keep at it.
Yeah, to that end, I suppose I am obligated to say this, but I think I'm hoping the climate is getting better. Obviously, it's it's obvious that things aren't going all that well, or the market is in a tough spot. But seeing some of the larger VCs like Omega Funds in Boston and Atlas as well, raising significant nine-figure yeah, there we go, got it. Nine-figure funds is reassuring that there might be cash flow coming back into the sector. And what I think it's going to look like at least for a bit of let's call it a medium term, is going to be consolidation. So instead of a lot of micro shops and a lot of companies being all over the place, it's going to really consolidate itself into a series of the players one might expect. Um, Over the short term, I'm hoping that things will get better. And again, touching on what the other two folks have said, it's somebody's still got to do it, and we still at the end of the day are working towards making humans healthier. So we're just gonna have to keep pushing forward.
Perfect. Thank you all. And we touched upon this a little bit just now, of course, with the non-dilutive funding being cut short and all that changes. So with all these changes within US for life science policy, regulation, public funding, does these affect your decision making or affect your investment strategy as VCs or as a pharma representative? So for this question, maybe we could go backwards, starting from Danny, just to switch things up a little bit.
So that's a tough question that we run into, and this is very much a personal opinion of mine, that clinical trials and the cycle of science is always going to be a longer cycle than a political cycle. So there, of course, there are issues that we're going to run into with public policy, but I'm also of the opinion that we're just going to have to keep going at it because I think to stop would be catastrophic, and we would find it very difficult to recover. As far as influencing investment strategy, given news cycles, and so an example that comes to mind was with Sarepta. I'm sure a lot of folks were very much scared away from AAV gene therapies with the the difficult, let's be kind and call it the difficult situation that came out of that. So I suppose it's sure we're going to find public policy and news cycles affecting what areas of technologies we're more interested in than others. But also, I think that something that we need to consider is that the life cycle of science in a clinical trial and of a drug is going to outlast political cycles. So that's another thing that we very much need to keep in mind. And also, I very happy to disagree or have a conversation for folks who might disagree with me. Curious where folks might land on that side.
Um, the question of, has the current, political climate changed our investment strategy? Certainly, you can't avoid funding, right? Funding makes it go. Can't help it. So we we are tightening up on finding the best possible deals that are able to be capitalized. And so syndication is extremely important. We will look and we coach companies to look beyond US investors if they're really running into an issue. One of our portfolio companies even set up a subsidiary in the UAE because there is not only money there, their regulatory environment is a little bit more relaxed. So, for instance, this is a stem cell company. They finished phase 2. They are able to actually, with some early data, be able to commercialize into phase 3. With their phase 3 data, be able to commercialize. Um, so they sacrificed in order to set up shop there. The founder moved her whole family over, and you don't have to go to such extremes, but this is indicative of also what Nikhil was saying. Look, you have to look beyond borders, right? Our usual. Um, the one exception in terms of funding could be Department of Defense related. They're quite flush. And again, this great portfolio, very savvy company. They found a contract through the Air Force where at the end of phase 2 positive data, they are able to, with the contract money earned from the Air Force, be able to treat 3 patients. This is sidestepping FDA regulatory, but these are permissible legally. So try to be creative. And I hope just these 2 examples I've shared might stimulate certain ideas.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the external environment is always going to have impact, right? Obviously, as you know, tariffs, for example. I mean, obviously, once we are looking at CMC packages for companies and launch strategies, we have to account for that, right, in the model. So it has impact on how the financially attractiveness, the deal could be, and it could determine the decision. Similarly, the IRA, right? It was discussed quite a lot a couple of years ago. I mean, the small molecule thing, yeah, 9 years, that has an impact on the model, right? So it's things like this that are going to have an impact on the model. But here's what I will say. I have not seen a decision change in last few years because of these variables. The decision primarily I see has been made one way or the other based on the science and the risk of underlying drug. That's as simple as it gets because that's that overrides everything else. I mean, that is such a risk that these 5% here, there, doesn't make or break the deal. Most of the times we are talking about a toxicity issue or is the data going to replicate, patient selection criterias and things like that. It's not, hey, is this, 5-10% tariff going to be meaningful or not? Don't get us wrong, it all adds up financially. And if a lot of these things are stacked up against you, then one day, it will become prohibitive for our industry. But I don't think we are there yet. But these things do matter and are important.
I'm glad to hear it's not just me on that one.
No, I
Uh,
do think that science has to prevail, right? And patents have to be strong. But for funding also, you just can't help it. It's the reality, and so many companies have relied on the wonderful SBIR programs that our government has had. Funding is just absolute, and if you have to pivot as a result, but still with good science, you just have to. So maybe AstraZeneca's and the other pharmas have the wonderful deep pockets that you do, and you are still able to focus on the science. But for startups and investors, we've seen too many companies also go by the wayside because they couldn't get capitalized. So it's a reality we have to think about. They have to think about.
yeah, this is a question more for you, Nikhil, as a farmer representative, and you already touched on this a little bit. But we do see a lot of startups wanting to get in touch with the pharma companies, of course. So how do you see the exit environment like IPOs and M&A shaping up this year? And do you think pharma partnerships are becoming more important as an exit route given the slower IPO market?
Yeah, surely. I mean, I think I referred to this a little bit earlier as well. Funding is tight. Obviously, one non-dilutive way of getting financing is pharma deals, and that's very attractive right now, right? So it not only gives you the financing, but more importantly, the capabilities, the validation, and all of that, right? So there's a lot of there's a lot of value in seeking that. And I would encourage everybody to continue to explore that early. And that should be done as part of your strategy, regardless of the environment. Because, even if you're going it alone, partnering, on some of the programs always is helpful because that validates you, that gives you that stamp, that you're working with, and you can build something together, right? So that helps, and more partnerships will happen because companies are obviously struggling. So that's an opening, for them as well as farmers to think about novel structures, deal structures, and do things that probably would not have been possible when funding was pretty good, right? So IPO market, I think, will be still struggling. I think it all is dependent on the interest rate, right? That's really the driver, right? Because if you're getting whatever 5-6% interest rate in savings, and if you look at the return on investment in many of the funds, it's equivalent or less than that, right? So one could always think about, I'll just put my money in savings account and sit on it, right? Which is not a bad strategy in this environment. So that's really what is driving. But if the interest rate go lower, then we'll probably see some recovery. Crossover funds, they have a lot of, as I said, they have a lot of dry powder. There's no problem with funding. And Danny also alluded to this. People are raising big rounds. It's just that what companies are getting funded is very different than 2022. So you gotta really think about what is it that you're building, how differentiated is it based on, what you're offering from what is out there, and also thinking about these global elements, right? That's really critical, I would say, for any small company right now.
And as a subset of, the M&A and partnerships, companies might consider more licensing to some of their pipelines. It's a form of revenue generation and potentially lead to that M&A. But that could be an interim path. We're seeing a number of our portfolio companies do that in order to just also keep viable, capitalize. So you might think of that and incorporate as your modus operandi. Regardless, also, you have to be quite creative. So think about licensing. You could do it here in the US. You can look elsewhere beyond the borders. Yeah, think of that possibility as well.
I don't have much to add here just because it's a bit different from it's a bit down the road from what we're doing. But also another thing on the topic of being creative, folks with financially more experience than I imagine that there's going to be a secondary market that emerges for a lot of these companies, wherein it's going to be just an alternative pathway to exit events that isn't any of the three we've mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you all. And I feel like we've already given so many, you guys have already given so many great advice for companies in the current landscape. But and what with the current, I guess, challenges and opportunities, what guidance or what advice would you give to startup who are currently seeking to fundraise at the moment?
So I can start with that one.
Mhm.
At an early stage, what we're looking for that absolutely has to be locked down is this: you have to have a really compelling story. So you need to get folks excited about what you're working on, and we're very aware that at an early stage it's going to come with a lot, well, different risks from things down the road. But knowing what your value add is going to be and where you're coming in to do something that nobody else can, and being very brutally aware of that is very important. And then to that, I'll add the second point, which is we're very team focused or founder focused when we do make our investments. It's not perhaps isn't this isn't the exact way we ask it, but it is going to be we'll ask ourselves something along the lines of why is this team the best group of people on earth to do this work? So knowing what you're doing and being able to pitch it in a compelling way and having a really strong group of folks who we know that are going to be able to execute, especially when things get hard, because quite frankly, in a biotech startup, it's going to. Those are the 2 points that I think are most salient. And also have good science, but that one speaks for itself.
Thank you. What about you, Elizabeth?
I would echo a lot of what Danny said. Oh, fundraising. Okay, grants are tough. Still try. Again, think about the DoD. Really, their budget is immense. They do a lot of health per se, but also dual technology. So explore that. And think of their path to commercializing a little earlier than maybe traditional regulatory FDA routes. And as far as fundraising, no question, the team is all important. We don't, we do prefer those who've gone through the ringer before, but if you don't, make sure you have people around you. And we could see, and we'll call and say, how often do you consult? If they're, just a marquee name, that's not going to work it for us. But you have to start somewhere, and we recognize that and applaud people who have that, bravery. So surround yourself, and we'll see that, and that's also another way. Um, you've got the investor community, the family office community. Dare I say, crowdfunding also. Some people have to do it. Yeah, so explore everything.
Thank you. What about Unit Health?
Yeah, I'll just add that, there are, creative ways of doing deals, right? I think one of the things that I have not talked about is, evaluation or an material transfer agreement with pharmas, right? Obviously, getting a licensing deal always is great, but may not happen always because, there are, especially for early stage companies, right, where you have an early molecule or something super early. Typically, if there is interest from our side, we may pitch a material transfer agreement where we can get your molecule and test it within our systems and assays for two things. One is obviously reproducibility of your data sets, key data sets, but more importantly, we may have some proprietary animal models, assays, things like that that we want to validate it against. And those are good ways for you to bring up proactively and suggest as well, because I've seen so many deals done that way where initially there were a lot of different risks, that we had identified with the asset or platform. And, what we decided together was, okay, why don't we do a MTA, get your materials in, test those out, generate answers, quickly for those questions, and then decide based on that. And a couple of times, it doesn't always work for multiple reasons, but a couple of times it has worked and it has led to multiple, licensing deals and big deals, that we have done. So as Elizabeth was saying, get creative, think outside the box. If pharma is offering you this MTA route, that's actually very flattering because it takes cost for us to do these things. We are dedicating time and of our scientists and internal bandwidth. So we wouldn't offer that unless we are super interested. So that's one another area to keep on your radar, apart from traditional licensing M&E sort of deals as well.
Thank you, everyone, for the great advice. And also, we've heard from startups how hard it is to get in front of investors too. So obviously, leading up to this, we have our upcoming Resi conferences, which makes it nice for startups and investors and strategic partners to meet up and introduce each other. But can you share a little bit more about your sourcing process? Do you have any preference on how you like companies approaching you? And do you find these types of partnering conferences helpful at all?
Yeah, I can start there. So we source from all avenues, conferences, like RESI, JP Morgan, all of, and then scientific conferences as well, ASCO and, ACR and all of that. And then obviously VCs, we talk to Danny, Elizabeth, and others who are, who have their portfolio companies and they introduce, them to us and, vice versa. And then, academic institution, tech transfer offices, we have networks there as well. So we are catching signals from everywhere, right? Patent filings, publications. So we have teams, our teams are everywhere, and they're trying to catch signals of companies. And we get data from all those sources, and then we have a process to sort of filter through that. But approaching us is very easy. If you type AstraZeneca business development contact, one of the first links you will get is, key people's contacts across therapeutic areas with their email addresses, and you can email us directly. It's as simple as that. And, even if you don't know who you're looking for, you can find it very easily. And I think many big pharmas have that now. If you look for our competitors as well, I know my old company Merck also has the same thing where you can submit, and those inquiries, we respond. But it's against our performances. So, how fast and quickly we evaluate those and, get across those is counted towards our annual performance reviews and all of that, right? So we take that very seriously. Whenever you send us information, it gets evaluated. Many times we may not respond because maybe it's not a fit, for us. Typically, we do try and respond, but many times, it is overwhelming amount, and especially you got to do your homework as well. If, I get inquired about, some neuroscience company where if you just read our last quarter's, investor R&D day, our CEO was clear that we have moved out of neuroscience space, right? And if you still expect answer sending a neuroscience thing to AZ, then there's a mismatch there, right? So do your homework as well, identify areas that are super high interest to us, and those are again on our website, and we are always happy to talk about those as well. But if you do your homework and send us a very specific guidance on, hey, this is my company, you had mentioned this is of interest to you, immunology, this is what we are doing, attach a non-confidential deck which summarizes, key experiments and how you're differentiated, what is your IP, things like that, 100% you will get a response.
Thank you.
Um,
Isabel, go ahead.
yeah, I would say, we are overwhelmed, and we try our best to respond. Sometimes if there isn't a response, it's not you. It may not align with the portfolio at that time. It's not as though everything starts on equal footing. If we've invested in 5 cardiac device companies, we probably want to take a break to diversify. So do your homework, just like Nikhil said. You can apply on our website and be very clear. We got LinkedIn, right? If you see that you got a second degree contact that may know us, absolutely leverage it. It always helps, You also probably want a referral from a trusted source. We're no different. But we have absolutely considered companies who have approached us cold, and we don't want to miss the diamond in the rough. So it's a combination, folks, of everything. Know that we are overwhelmed, and it's only so much, human bandwidth possible. And sometimes it's just not an alignment, which is not to say anything about you. Another VC or angel group may very much be ready for you. So do some work and expect it will take work, and just keep trying and send us your applications. We do look at everything though.
Yeah, I'll add on more of the same. I think an emphasis on networking is very helpful because as my colleagues here have mentioned, we do get a lot to review. So again, any referral from someone is definitely gonna help chances that we get eyes on things. And I'll go ahead and just add the same that we do try to give everything a look, but the closer you can get to it being an intro from someone that we regularly talk to, the better it's going to get, as opposed to a cold email. But that's not going to say that a cold email is not going to work.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, Elizabeth's point about, do your homework and also approach everybody, right? I mean, as Elizabeth said, I mean, you may have different things which may fit better, right? We have talked to all of our peer groups in pharma, talk to all the companies out there, right? But then one pharma does a deal with particular company, and it's all about the fit, right? Somebody has a different need at certain point of time in their business cycle. It's nothing on you. Don't take it personally. Just keep trying, compile a list of, who are your top partners, right? Top 10, 20, 50. Do your homework on them, build an analysis on, hey, are these guys really investing in therapeutic areas or indications that I am, trying to work in? Is my product fitting, combining with their existing pipeline or products? Do that level of analysis and make it very specific to them, right? And say, okay, this is what it is. That will increase your chances. Not everybody will be good fit, but your job is to basically find that one person will be good fit, and that's all you need, right? In terms of partnership.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everyone or many of you will be attending in the audience the Resi conference that's coming up. But I guess besides the technology and being a fit, is there anything? I mean, it's okay if there's not, but is there anything that might stand out to you guys extra, whether that may be like on the partnering platform or whether in person at the conference, that might make you more eager to talk to a startup, or is it kind of a free for all, in your opinion?
I mean, at the end of the day, mechanism of action, if it matches with our interest, then that is really the, I mean, that trumps everything else. But having said that, if something you're offering is new and you have done your homework, I can tell you within 5 seconds of looking at an email if I'm gonna, how much time I'm gonna spend on it based on how it is structured, what things they are saying in terms of what they are offering. If you start talking about, hey, we've reviewed this may be good fit with AstraZeneca. You have really done your homework, and you want to tell us why this will be great fit, why you should consider us. And when I open your deck, it's nicely organized. Experiments are very clean and clear to understand. I think that increases the chances. But like I said, first point is the key. If let's say I have some mechanisms that I'm super interested in that my team is prioritizing right now. If you're one of them, chances are good that we already know you because we have done our homework as well. If not, somehow you're flying under the radar, then that will get our attention very, very quickly, right?
Awesome. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left. I guess we'll go into some Q&A here. I will go through the chat, but I guess one question that did stand out to me was about AI, and I know we talked about that very briefly. On our end too, we do notice a lot of startups incorporating AI into the technologies nowadays. With not much regulation, it's kind of very much so trending. But what is I know Elizabeth, you mentioned a little bit earlier, with being validated and all that, but what are your guys' personal opinion or any observation you might have noticed with um, everyone just throwing AI out there nowadays to uh, be in that hot spot?
Well, there are different types of AI, and we want the most sophisticated, latest LLM type. If you say machine learning or neural network, that's history. So we do need things to be updated. Validation is very important. People keep to static data sets, and people think, oh, I did a study with this one hospital center, lots of patients, but how a patient's treated there may be very different from how they're treated elsewhere. So you need to account for all the human variability. And that's part of training to ensure garbage in is not garbage out. So it's incredibly important to validate and keep it trained and up to date. Yeah.
Awesome. Any input about AI, Danny or Nikhil?
I can add that know what you're using it for because throwing AI at a problem isn't necessarily going to solve it. You have to be very pointed about how you're implementing it. I read an MIT business report where an unreasonably high number, like perhaps even pushing the 80s percentage of companies who have implemented AI had found that it wasn't helpful at all. So I think instead of trying to chase that bubble with the fun keywords, really marquee or clever implementations that actually turn into a value add is important.
Yeah, nothing specifically additional, but one thing I'll say is what does your technology do and how does it add value, right? It may be the best model and fastest or whatever, right? Like at the end of the day, how does it improve our lives with, our as in, first of all, pharma people who are doing drug development, does it shorten time we get to the hit? You are quickly identifying hits or you are quickly identifying patients to enroll in clinical studies, or you got to be very clear on what you're offering, right? Just saying technology is faster or better than others is not going to be helpful. And if you can include some case study there, that's really what gets our attention because most of the time we see these things and it's not really clear what is going on. You have to really demonstrate your value proposition there.
Thank you. We also have another question with someone asking they would like to hear more about your approach to syndication. When do you prefer to uh, take the lead, and when do you prefer to come in as a supporting investor?
So I can take that one. Most investments, practically all, speaking frankly, are going to be syndicates of investments at the early stage. When we prefer to lead versus follow, it usually works itself out for one of two things. First of all, is can we get there on the numbers? Oftentimes, the way we look at it is that the larger check is going to be leading, and with a smaller check size coming from us, we won't be leading much. And then the second is what is the company looking for? So at SciMed, I touched a bit on it about weaving science into a story. We'd like to think that that's one of our huge advantages, and also being connected at the network of neuroscience and neurotech, and knowing everybody and being first movers in the space. So, in thinking about syndication, I like to tell folks that every investor should bring something to the table, and that rather than, even though it's easier said than done in such a difficult climate, rather than just looking for a check, you want folks who are writing the check to be able to help you as well. So, when building a syndicate, it's putting together in the same way that we look for a team of founders. The founders should be looking for a team of investors to help them succeed.
Great. Any input from Elizabeth? I know, Nikhil, you're on the pharma side, so this may not be.
Yeah. So is the syndication about VCs or investors syndicating or the entrepreneur syndicating the deal? I think Danny sort of answered it from the entrepreneur side, pick the best group of investors who can smart money, right? If it's from I'm sorry, Momo, go ahead.
Yes, I think it's from the investor side that they're asking.
Oh, okay. When do we almost, yeah, we almost always syndicate deals or have them syndicated to us. We like the group muscle, financial as well as capabilities. It only strengthens and boosts the company up. So when it comes, how it comes, doesn't matter as long as the tech makes sense, the investors are a good group, we'll jump in. Yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess we'll jump into the last question since we only have 5 minutes left. So, the most recent one. So, how critical is the stated valuation and the pitch to keep the dialogue moving ahead? If you like the company, does it simply get negotiated later? And I guess I'll merge this with a different question. Sorry, it's a big one, but if you did pass on an opportunity, uh, due to a investor with sorry, due to from a referral from another investor due to a strategic mismatch, um, are there or timing or other reasons? Sorry. Okay, let's just go back to the original question. How critical is the stated valuation, the pitch to keep the dialogue moving ahead? If you like the company, does it simply get negotiated later?
If it's a glaring mismatch, we talk about it up front. Otherwise, if the house is too expensive, we're never going to buy, right?
Yep.
So you should talk about it up front. If there's some room for negotiation, you're sort of kind of close, but the deal is awesome. We might talk more first to make sure it's worth talking about the price eventually. Yeah, that's how we approach things.
Yeah, fundamentally agree with that. If you come in and it's like, hey, we're raising at a valuation of $100 million and we can put in 750, or just that's not going to make sense for our fund model, so we're just not going to be able to get there. And if there's wiggle room and we're really excited about it, again, we can work through the numbers and get to a place where everyone's happy. Or everyone's unhappy, which means you probably got a decent deal.
I mean, what about you, Nikhil? Do you have any input on this?
No, this is not the topic that comes often in my world,
Mhm.
but I can answer it in another context. So, I mean, obviously, valuations are important for us as well because we have to pay fair value and make a return for ourselves as well. So, these topics get debated quite a lot, but there's nothing that we can't really work, especially for early stage and licensing deals. M&A is where it gets more complicated, where valuations and things are one of the primary reasons why we walk away. Licensing deals, generally, we are able to agree on price. Not 100% of times, but
Mhm.
there's always willingness from both parties to reconsider, right? So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, we have 2 minutes left. Maybe we could just try to attempt that question that Momo was trying to combine with the current question again. So
Yeah.
with if yeah, so just to kind of like paraphrase it, if you heard there's an opportunity that another investor that you know had passed on for whatever reason, and you see it again. So does that kind of affect your decision making, or would you take the time to kind of reevaluate or evaluate that same opportunity that another investor you know has passed on? I guess it's more relevant for, I guess, maybe Danny and Elizabeth. Do you have any, I guess, input on this at all?
Sure, I can speak to that a bit. When speaking from my own experience, when somebody tells you it's a timing mismatch, they're not lying to you. And quite frankly, if a very respected colleague passed something along to me and said it was a timing issue, I'm probably more inclined to believe that it is something worth giving a look. Because investors, one would imagine that they don't really share unexciting opportunities amongst themselves. So again, going back to networking and introductions, the if somebody whom I respect and work with often sends me something and gives their reasoning for passing on it, I'm still going to give it a look.
Awesome. What about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I mean, you can't dismiss the thoughts of a trustworthy partner, syndicate, but we also don't go with herd mentality. You got to figure it
Mm,
out on your own and evaluate. We always still look, but if it's, oh my God, we don't do valuations at X, but we may, and sometimes we match with another investor group. Sometimes we're a little bit off, but we may favor whatever. We'll think on our own too. So that's how it works. We don't just immediately, okay,
mhm.
no, we think about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nikhil, any input? Or-
no input really there. I just dropped my contact details of myself and other colleagues across therapeutic areas and technology in the chat. So do your homework, and if there is anything relevant across therapeutic areas or technology, you can always approach us.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much to our panelists today for sharing your insight. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. I hope this is a constructive discussion and has given you some useful perspective on the current life science and healthcare investment, and also some like practical, useful guidance or advice for those of you who are fundraising out there. Well, we look forward to continue the conversation at our upcoming conference. And I hope to see you all again at our future events. And thank you all so much today. And that's a wrap for our session.
And thank you for hosting.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. That was fun.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Perfect. Thank you all. Bye.
Take care, y'all.
Please feel free to share my contact, and I'm sure Danny and Nikhil agree. Okay.
Perfect. Will do.
Bye
Thank
all.
you. Bye.
Bye.